Hello and welcome to the How to Love Being Married podcast with Paul and Shelley Seeger. Got my beautiful wife here today. Hello there, Shelley.
Hi, sweetie.
How's it going today?
We're doing pretty good.
We've been having so much fun today, Labor Day.
We've been laboring.
Well,
I should say you've been laboring. I've been watching.
You've been watching me really well.
I watch good.
You do. You're a good watcher, but you were there.
I direct.
Anytime I needed a tool, you were right there. You're like the tool time lady on Tool Time, Tim Taylor, right?
Yeah, and I came up with some good ideas, don't you think?
You did. She saved my bacon. She had some great ideas. I told her she should be an engineer, and yet you're a real estate agent. That's a great thing for you.
I even had my first opportunity to do some real estate work over the weekend.
Nice.
It was fun.
Want to say anything about that?
It was fun.
It was fun.
Yeah.
And she's very thorough, meticulous.
Mm.
So one story that I read here recently, I don't know if I told you this, it just reminded me with Cooper sitting on your lap. And for those that don't know who Cooper is, it's our dog. And this came out of North Korea. Apparently the government there told the citizens to surrender their dogs.
Really?
I guess they're low on
Food?
meat, apparently.
Oh.
I don't know what they do. Poodle soup? I don't know, but terrible. But anyway,
Ew.
I've never tried dog. I don't plan
Ever
on
want
it.
to?
So, and Cooper wouldn't make much of a meal anyways. 4 pounds.
If that, when he's wet.
And speaking of dogs, so I was noticing our dog, and every morning, just kind of for a treat, I give him 4 or 5 Cheerios.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I noticed is he's so fixated on the next Cheerio that he can't enjoy the Cheerio he's eating. Like he'll just about swallow it whole, and he's waiting for the next one.
Shaking.
And what I thought, are we that way? Are we so busy trying to get our next Cheerio or whatever it is in our life that we don't enjoy what we have right now? I know I'm guilty of that.
Yeah.
Maybe not Cheerios, but when it comes to French
Cheerios.
fries, that's where I have a problem.
Fries.
French fries, can't get to the next one fast enough.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, I think we're guilty of that.
We are. And the other thing I noticed is this was going back a few weeks, so go back to your memory bank, but you had a problem getting the remote going one day. Do you remember that? Does that strike a bell, or is that too far back?
Do you mean in the living room?
You were making masks, I think in your office.
Oh, yeah.
You were making masks for a project that they were doing.
My TV wouldn't go on, I think.
So her TV wouldn't go on. So she calls me in, and it worked just fine for me. So I just wanted to let everybody know, as my chauvinist pig self here, that yes, men should run the remote, right?
No, and you do always run the remote. And then what you do is if you get up to leave the room, you are always sure to put it clear over on your nightstand rather than on the bed where I could use it if I wanted to while you're gone.
Well, you know why I do that?
Why?
I don't want you to break it while I'm gone.
Oh, I'm famous for breaking things.
The remote might not work. No, but she's very good with the remote, actually.
No.
Not quite the shows I want. HGTV. I mean, there's some good things on there. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
There are.
Food Channel. I like the Food Channel.
And if you noticed on the Food Channel, they make things that nobody else would ever make. It's like
what, Paul?
I don't know. They have just weird things that they're making on there. It's like all these ingredients I've never heard of.
That can happen, yeah. Especially on Chopped.
Like, here's some roots that came from the Dominican of Republic.
Dominican of Republic.
So, it's I don't know. It's just stuff I would never eat. You know me and my American food.
Your burgers?
My burgers.
We had a burger today.
We did. And you picked it out.
Yeah.
I think you were having sympathy for me.
You worked
I was working in
so
the
hard
garage,
and it
and
was
she
so
said,
hot.
"Do you want In-N-Out burger?" And I said, "Is the sky blue?" So yes, that was great. That was a good lunch.
Yeah, was
The
good.
kind they should make on all those food channels.
And then if you want to make your own drink well, it's my favorite. You take a Sprite with crushed ice, and I like a lot of ice. And then if you have fresh limes, just squeeze fresh lime juice into your drink. Or I buy the real lime juice.
Did
So
they
good.
call that a lime Ricky or what are
Well,
those?
I
Is that
thought
what
it
they?
was, but it's not because I went to Arctic Circle and got a lime Ricky and I didn't like it. It was yucky. Or no, it was that Burger Ben. That's where I got it. Up in Roy.
Yeah.
And because I thought that was a lime Ricky and it was purple, it was weird. I
Purple?
didn't like it.
That doesn't sound like lime.
It doesn't.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Be careful of your lime Rickies. They might be
Just
purple.
make it like I make it. It's delicious.
Yeah, she's good at it. Well, we are talking about today a very important subject, and that is about intimacy in marriage and how important that is. And we've tried to be careful the way that we approach this subject because we feel like it's very sacred and very important to a marriage. So we don't want to say anything that is diminishes that.
Exactly.
So if we come across as doing that, we apologize up front because that's not our intention. We just know that it's an important thing for marriages to succeed and a necessary part of a good marriage.
Strengthening your marriage.
So intimacy is very important. Do you want to say what you have to say first?
Well, it was interesting because we've been thinking about this topic for a while, huh?
We have.
Kind of trying to figure out, okay, how do we talk about this topic in the right way? Because it is so important. And something that came to my mind was how interesting it is. Like you watch on TV, and of course on TV, most of the time people aren't married and they're having sexual relations. And if you think about it, like if you're married now, think about before you were married. Before you're married, that's pretty much you're dating, and
the
that's
strong impulses that were there.
Yeah, it's like always on your mind, right?
And especially if you're in our religion, we believe that you wait until you're married to have sexual relations. That's important to wait. That's how
living the
we
law of chastity.
felt that's an important thing to do. So there were a lot of, I would say, temptations, if you will,
right.
before you're married to have relationships before you're married.
Yeah. And so I was thinking about that and how strong of a temptation that is before you're married, right? Like you think about it and it really is a strong temptation. And after you get married, what can happen a lot of times with people in marriages is that strong impulse kind of goes away. It can go away. You can put it on the back burner. You can be way too busy. And interestingly enough, like think about on TV, they don't glamorize sexual relations between a husband and wife, do they?
It's
only
all about
glamorize it
more of an
if they're not married.
entertainment and something to do to please yourself.
Yeah. And so I was thinking about it. I thought, that's really interesting. If you think about it, Satan he really wants you to have sexual relations before you're married. Like that is so important to him, to try to get you to have those relations before you're married. But after you're married,
he doesn't want you to have
those
that brings
relations.
you closer to each other.
He doesn't want your marriage or your family to succeed, and he knows how important those relationships, that intimacy relationship is in a marriage. And so he's going to try to do everything he can for you not to have those relationships, to not be intimate very often or much with your spouse, right?
And that's an important thing to do to keep your marriage strong, to keep it that bond together.
Yeah, it grows your marriage, and he knows that, so he will.
He doesn't want you to be strong.
So get busy, be too busy,
Tired,
too tired, too busy with the kids,
or maybe you're not very happy with your spouse. A little conflict arises, so that you don't want that with your spouse.
Yeah, and I think that like in a marriage, it is a super important part of your marriage and keeping you strong, but yet it's not something that you do all the time, but it's a really, really important part of your marriage. It's important that people remember and keep that a top priority, right?
And whether you need, some people schedule it or whatever it is, it's a scheduled thing, and doesn't happen organically, as they say, but it happens on the calendar. And if that's the way you have to do it, then that's the way you have to do it, if that's what works. And I know with children, especially when you have a lot of kids, it doesn't work very well when all the kids are running around the house. It's just not appropriate, and it's not going to work very well.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
There was I remember, I thought of this morning when we woke up. I hugged you, and I just thought, it feels good to hug your spouse. I like it.
Yeah, me too.
And part of intimacy is not all about the sexual part of it, but the hugging, the kissing brings you closer together.
Yep.
I just, there's just a
Holding
bond that you have,
hands.
holding hands, hugging each other, kissing each other. And I've heard some people say, you shouldn't show affection
PDA.
in public, and although I agree with that to some extent, that there is a line, and there's things you have to be careful and private about. Obviously,
Appropriate.
I'm not going to make out with my wife in front of everybody, but a quick peck on the lips, I don't.
Doesn't
I
bother
think
me.
that. I think I heard a wise person tell me once. It was a leader of our church, and he said, it's good for other people to see other couples that get along. It's important for them to see that actually they get along.
And he was talking about the youth, wasn't he?
He was talking about the youth, that it was good for the youth to see couples that get along. And I agree with that. There's too much chaos going on. I think kids need to see that there are successful marriages, that there are husbands and wives that truly love each other and care about each other. And although you need to be careful and not go over the line, and there's things that you do in private that you wouldn't do other places, but a hug, a kiss, holding hands, I think that's good for other people to see. This is a married couple, and they actually love each other and get along. Yeah. That's nice to see.
Yeah.
I see people post on Facebook. They'll take a picture of a couple in their 90s holding hands, walking down the stairs together, and say, oh, this just melted my heart. Well, why doesn't it melt your heart if you're 40 or 30 or 20?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you have to be 90 for that to melt your heart? It's just as an important thing. Yeah. And the 90-year-old couple, the reason why they're doing that at 90, because they did it at 70 and 60 and 20 in their 20s or whenever they got married.
Right.
It doesn't just happen overnight.
Right. I agree with you. I do.
So besides just sexual intimacy, there's an emotional intimacy that is part of that. And I think holding hands, kissing, those are the parts, talking to each other. That's a part of an emotional intimacy that's important. And I had this quote, and I apologize, I don't know whose it is. So if this is your quote, I apologize for using it. I'm not trying to use your information, but I like the quote. It says, emotional intimacy is generally defined as closeness in which both partners feel secure and loved, and in which trust and communication abounds. When you are emotionally intimate with your spouse, you may feel as if you can see into each other's soul, knowing their hopes, dreams, and fears, and understanding them at a deep level. I like that.
I do too.
So I wasn't talking about sexual relations, but in an emotional intimacy.
Connection.
A connection and being able to look in each other's soul. And I feel like that with Shelley. We just get each other, and we may be the weirdos, and people may think we're weird, and that's okay, because we love each other and care about each other, and that's what keeps us close.
Yeah.
So if you don't like it,
tough. Too bad.
Anyway, you had some great quotes. So do you want to?
I did, but I was thinking about something. So in our home, like when I grew up, okay, so my mom, the way that I remember being taught about the birds and bees was her giving me a book to read. And I remember reading this book, and it said something about at a certain time, a boy will like a girl and a girl will have feelings for a boy. And that's about all it told me. So when we got married, of course, I was quite naive. But
and you had that feeling when you were in kindergarten.
Anyway, so but in our home we're more open about that with our kids, and we know how important sexual relationships are in a marriage, and so we've been more open with our kids. Now when we say that, we feel like what we do behind our bedroom door, that's only for us to talk about together. Like that has nothing to do with anybody else. That's our business.
Well, one of our daughters, do you remember that story where she...
I was going to get
to
were
that. You?
Go ahead.
Okay.
We read each other's minds. Go ahead.
So we started telling her about the birds and the bees. And she asks...
well, we told her, feel free to ask us any questions.
We told her what we do, and she went running downstairs.
Not what we do,
Yeah, we just told her that this is what
the birds and the bees.
You wait till you're married, and so this isn't to be used before you're married, and how important that is. And
we explained.
We did it in a sacred, important way, and she went running downstairs into her closet and closed her closet.
Yeah, and we had prayed about that. Like we really took it seriously. We wanted to make sure we said the right things, and
we felt she was old enough to know. I
think she was like 6th grade or something, but anyway, apparently it scared
we didn't want her because you heard in school. That's why we didn't want you to learn when our kids were in school. We wanted to hear from us.
I was in 3rd grade. There was a boy named James, and he was from the what's it called? Like the boys' home?
Boys' Ranch.
Boys' Ranch. That's where he lived. And he was sitting right behind me, and he was talking behind me. His desk was right behind me. And he went on to explain sex and completely freaked my whole mind out. I went home, and I was the kind of kid that like, things really bothered me. They still do, right? You know me. And so I was like following my mom around, and finally she's like, Shelley, what is wrong with you? I'm like, Mom, James at school said that this is what husbands and wives do, and I don't believe you and Dad would ever do that. And she said, you're right. We would never do that.
We would never in a million years.
So
not sure how you got here. The stork delivered you.
When I say I was naive when we got married on our wedding night, I was naive, okay? But yeah, anyway, that's what I was going to say.
That was funny.
Yeah.
So yeah, we told her that, and she went and hid herself. But do you remember then she got more comfortable?
Yes, because we told her, now if you have any questions, we would rather that you ask us. We want you to get the right information, and we would rather you talk to us. So we want you to feel comfortable. If you have questions, you can ask us. Daddy and Mom, you can ask us any questions. So then
she says, how often do you guys do it? And we're like, okay, that's one of those questions. You can ask us anything, but there are some private things, and those are between us.
Yeah.
So we had to explain that. But that was a really funny part about it, telling your kids about the birds and the bees.
Exactly.
And some of our kids learned about that on Autopia at Disneyland, right? The birds and the bees.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
You learn about it for like 3 hours while you're waiting in line.
Yeah. It's
when you could wait in line.
Yeah. Okay, so I found this really cool quote, and it is from Wendy W. Nelson. She is actually the wife of our prophet for our church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And Wendy Nelson was a professor of marriage and family therapy for 25 years. And in a worldwide devotional for young adults, she shared these 4 truths. So it's 4 truths about love and marriage. I have read them over and over. They're so good. So, number 1, truths about love and marriage are brought to you by the Holy Ghost from our Heavenly Father. Number 2, personal purity is the key to true love. The more pure your thoughts and feelings, your words and actions, the greater your capacity to give and receive true love. And number 3, as an important part of the expression of their love, the Lord wants a husband and wife to partake of the wonders and joys of marital intimacy. Number 4, for true marital intimacy, the Holy Ghost needs to be involved. It is simply not possible to have the kind of intimate experiences outside of marriage that you can have within, because the Spirit will not be present.
I like that.
I love that. I love that.
And if you look at, and I'm not knocking anybody that hasn't followed that counsel, but I know that I've seen firsthand people that have, and it doesn't make them happy.
Right.
It doesn't bring them happiness. It's not a true bond. And I've read, and I wish I had the quote with me, but I read something about those that had had sexual relations before they were married had trust issues with one another. They actually had some trust issues.
Mm.
And I don't know if that's everyone, but apparently there are some trust issues that can happen by sexual relations before marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really an important part of your marriage, but we firmly believe that it's something that is to be used after marriage, and not before.
And I don't know if you ever heard these myths, but I used to hear these myths that, people are only supposed to have sex when they want to have a child. I used to hear those little myths that, and clearly that is not the case.
Now, that's not God's way. Part of sexual relations is to bring you closer together, help you to
It is to
have
bring
a
children,
bond.
but
It is. That's one of the purposes, obviously. But to bring a bond in your marriage, to bring you closer together.
Exactly.
It's an important part of expressing your love and a bond that you can't express otherwise.
Yeah, it makes you feel closer to each other.
It really does.
Yeah.
And on that note, and maybe you have something, I don't know all your notes that you have, but part of that is for part of sexual intimacy is to make sure that husband and wife are comfortable with the things that are done during when you're having sexual relations. Right. You need to feel you both need to agree and not do something that your spouse is uncomfortable with.
For sure. And I think,
and I often think it's you have 3 people in your relationship. You have God and your husband and your wife. Those 3 need to be comfortable with what's going on.
For sure. I like that.
If there's things that that God wouldn't approve of, or your spouse, then you need to reevaluate.
Yep. Totally agree. So, and this is a different note, but something that we've talked about and that we've also told our kids when they're getting married is really how important it is to communicate to your spouse what you enjoy.
It is, because that's part of the intimacy, is expressing that. You need to be open. And I believe some of those splinters that you can have in a relationship is not being open enough to, maybe you're uncomfortable sharing those things. So maybe you start by expressing outside of that time with each other and kind of get that on the table, so you understand where the other one's coming from.
Sometimes you might you might think, oh, well, they should be a mind reader. They should know what I want.
Why isn't he doing this, or why isn't he doing that? Because he doesn't know.
Right. So we just feel like it's really important to communicate that and be very open. Why not?
As I've heard, use your words.
Exactly.
Use your words.
Right. Yep.
One thing I know that Shelley and I have talked to our children about, and especially our boys,
Our grown children.
Our grown children, right, as they've gotten ready to get married, is not to be selfish in their intimacy
with their spouse.
As they spend time together, and especially sexually, that they make sure, especially us men, need to take time to make sure our wives are taken care of sexually, and they take a bit of time longer, and we need to take that time, and I'll tell you, it brings a lot of closeness to our relationship, taking that extra time. And it's an important thing, especially for you men out there, to put your wife first and to take that extra time.
Yeah, I agree. That's really important, and so yeah, that's something that we have taught to our kids, and we want to make sure, especially our boys, know to be careful of that and make sure that not just that they're satisfied, but what about their wife?
Yep, their wife needs to feel that, and if she's feeling like she's just being used as an object, then you're doing something incorrect. You need to take time to make sure that you spend that extra time for your wife and make sure she's happy that way.
Yep, I agree. So, all right. So I have a couple more quotes that I really liked. And by the way, if you are a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the August 2020 Ensign is chock full of information about the importance of sexual intimacy within a marriage and the law of chastity. And so there's lots of good stuff in there. And if you're not a member of the church, how would you could probably still look
you
it
can
up.
Download the LDS, what do they call that now? Gospel Library. Yeah, you can just go to the App Store, Gospel Library, and I'll look it up exactly what it's
But
called.
anyway, there's an article by Elder Dale G. Renland and his wife, Ruth Libert Renland, and it's called The Divine Purposes of Sexual Intimacy. There were just a few things that I wanted to share that I really liked. First of all, they said, Heavenly Father intends that sexual relations in marriage be used to create children and to express love and strengthen the emotional, spiritual, and physical connections between husband and wife. And that goes along exactly with what you're saying, building that bond and that connection.
And it is Gospel Library.
Okay.
And it has a picture, it's a blue icon, and it has a picture of Jesus Christ on it.
Yep.
It has all kinds of things, but there's one called the
Ensign.
The Ensign. That's it. It's under magazines, because there's a lot of different things you can find. And it's all free. It's all free, no charge.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
So, and he goes on to say, sexual relations within marriage must respect the agency of both partners, which is what you were just saying, and should not be used to control or dominate. And when I read that, so many years ago, we knew of a couple, and they're actually now divorced, but she used to talk to me. We were friends, and she used to talk to me, and I remember her telling me that when she and her husband were in a fight, or she was mad at him, then she would withhold sex from him. She would use it as a weapon. And that's a danger zone.
And guys, you shouldn't do that either. I doubt that ever happens.
I'm sure she was really controlling him, and that's not okay.
Yeah, controlling your spouse with sex is not appropriate.
Yeah, withholding it, and yeah.
Really, when you think about it, it's not good to control your spouse with anything, whether it's money or whatever. You need to be
a partnership.
A partnership. You need to be on the same page. Get on the same page. Be a partnership instead of being against each other. Find reasons to agree instead of disagree all the time.
Yep. So one more quote that I really liked. He said, marriage was intended by God to mean the complete merger of a man and a woman. Their hearts, hopes, lives, love, family, future, everything to be one flesh in their life together.
And that goes back what we were saying. To be one flesh, you have to be partnerships. You're a partnership.
Mm-hmm.
If your business if you think of a business, good business partners get along. They can agree with each other, talk things out, understand each other, give a little bit. And it's the same in a marriage. You need to be a good partnership. You need to be willing to give of yourself.
Right.
Give instead of take all the time.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But intimacy, what an important thing. If there's one thing that can break a marriage and destroy it, it's
lack of
or not the appropriate intimacy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. And sorry, there is one last thing that he said that I really liked. He said, sexual relations are one of the ultimate expressions of our divine nature.
So it's a divine thing from Heavenly Father, and we believe it's an important thing.
And Satan knows how important it is, because if you think about it, he is the one trying to get you to have sex before you're married, and he doesn't want you to have sex after you're married.
So if you're married, have some intimacy.
Exactly.
And not just sexual, but emotional also.
Yeah.
I like that.
It'll grow your marriage. It'll grow you closer. You'll feel more connected. You'll just feel more in love.
Anything else?
I don't have anything else on my mind. How about you?
Well, I did have something completely different than this, but that I forgot to say. Okay. But I was noticing. It just came to me that COVID is an excuse for everything right now. Have you noticed that? COVID is, and I know this isn't anything to do with intimacy, but something I was going to say at the beginning of the podcast, and I just thought of it, that you go somewhere, they're out of something, and it's because of COVID.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that?
Yeah, they don't make chicken gumbo anymore.
Well, it's because of COVID. Yeah. And I've noticed that COVID is a reason for poor customer service.
Oh, yeah, you don't have
Everybody
to be
was
friendly.
really into customer service, but we call our credit union, and you'll be on for 35 minutes, 45 minutes. You've been trying to solve a particular problem for a couple of months. You've even gone into the branch.
Yeah.
And they can't solve this problem.
They changed their app. It stinks.
And it's
now
all
you
because
can't see
of
your
COVID.
FICO score because of COVID. And what was the other thing? You can't do mobile deposit. You can't do mobile deposit anymore because of COVID. They can't fix it because it's COVID.
It's COVID. Everything's because of COVID. I mean, I'm working. I think most people are working, so I don't know. I mean, you have to be careful. I mean, we wear a mask and all of that stuff, but hey, I don't know.
Yeah.
If you can't come up with an excuse for something, it's because of COVID. Yeah.
Good idea.
It's the reason for everything bad. It's COVID. Don't want to go to work, it's COVID. Yeah. Don't feel like something, it's COVID. Want to treat somebody terrible, it's COVID. It's all COVID.
I think you're right.
I hope we can get rid of COVID here.
Oh, me too. I'm so over COVID.
Yeah, I'm over COVID too. Well,
we hope this was helpful.
We do. And take your spouse, give them a big hug, hold their hand, go on a walk with them, talk, communicate, connect, talk nice to each other, be kind to one another, and love being married. And if you have an idea for our podcast, send us an email at howtolovebeingmarried@gmail.com. And we have a Facebook page, How to Love Being Married. Just search for the group and ask to be added on. We'll add you onto the group. Have a great week. And once again, love being married.